All right. Both cats are asleep, so I can finally do this. um, since I had a cat mishap last time. Hello, everybody. It's Adri. Welcome back. Welcome to Mother Knows Best. Today is I'm doing a quick review for a movie that just came out recently. A movie that I was skeptical about. I wasn't sure if it was going to be good, I guess, or if I was going to like it. It's also one that I had to go and find the first one to watch it because it's a movie that has piqued my interest for a very long time. It's one of those that it's either hard to find or it would be expensive, and I don't have the kind of money to be, dishing out $25 on a movie I may not even like. The movie I'm reviewing today is Blade Runner 2049. For those of you saying that's a lame title, what were they going to call it, they couldn't call it Blade Runner 2, so, and putting the year, it kind of, establishes that it's set further into the future, especially because I think they did want Harrison Ford's character to come back. So, anyway, before I get into all that, Blade Runner 2049, it was released October 6th of this year. It was directed by Denis Villeneuve. I can't say his last name. He's French-Canadian, and I think it's Villeneuve. I don't know. But yeah, he actually directed two really amazing movies that I like. Arrival, which came out last year, and Prisoners, which I believe came out in 2013. Both are great movies. His movies definitely have a sense of being very artistic, because Arrival is very... it's science fiction. If you don't remember that movie, it was with Amy Adams. It was definitely one that got missed last year by a lot of people because it's a really good movie. And it deals with language, because these aliens come to Earth and a linguist comes out. She's one of a group of people that are, talking to these aliens or trying to figure out what they want. And she's able to communicate with them effectively. It's a really cool movie. It really is. Prisoners is a little darker. Another one that really went under people's radar. It's a really great movie. It's a crime movie. It has Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman. I was about to say Wolverine, but that's not right. He is Wolverine, but I didn't want to say that, It's about a man who, his daughter goes missing, and he's basically doing everything he can to find her, even though that makes he does a lot of things that basically drive him to being pretty much just as bad as the people who took his daughter. It's a very dark movie. It's really good. Both his movies, that when I saw those, I was like, oh my God, of course, I really liked this Blade Runner. I'm kind of just laughing about all the articles that are coming out and just oh, such a flop. Oh, it did so badly. So did the first one. The original Blade Runner was a huge flop. I think a real, disappointment at the box office. Really, it didn't gain a lot of interest until it became basically a cult following. And if you're unfamiliar with the Blade Runner movies, it's basically future Los Angeles. Has a very Ghost in the Shell feel to it. It's about basically this company made robots called replicants, and they look exactly like humans. In a way, I got the sense that they were designed to be like humans. It's really weird. They have to do all these series of tests to figure out who's a replicant and who isn't. And because the replicants, they decided they didn't want to be slaves basically anymore. So they, revolted, did an uprising. These cops called Blade Runners, they go out and they have to find replicants and basically terminate them. It's really cool concept. It's a really cool movie. It's really aesthetic. Familiar with Blade Runner at all? It's very aesthetic to the point where you would see something and it's oh, that's totally from Blade Runner. Jumping into this, this sequel, all right, I'm sure one of the other reasons people aren't going to see it, it is 3 hours long. It is a long movie. It is, and in my opinion, it did not need to be 3 hours long. I'll get into that, but it is. It's not it ever really drags. You're sitting there and you're sort of immersed into it, And when it ends, you're just kind of like, oh, I didn't even know, it's been that long. If you're going to see this movie for Harrison Ford, don't do that. It's one of those, they advertised him because, he's coming back into this role. He's not in it for as long as you want him to be. You see way more Ryan Gosling, obviously, because Ryan Gosling is the main character for this movie. He plays a replicant named Kay. And this is basically like, 35 years after all of the first one went down. Replicants, basically, a new company took over the Tyrell Corporation. They've still been making replicants, but they've altered the design to where they can monitor them, basically, and they're able to obey. And they have like a baseline that they have to, it's priority that they stay at that like base level, or else, they'll have to be terminated, basically. So I got the feel that Ryan Gosling's job now was that he was going out and finding older models of replicants and putting them down. Because the replicants now, they don't have that 4-year lifespan. I didn't get the sense that they did anyway. Because I think a lot of them now, they're basically like, they're monitored to the point where they're safe, I guess. It is a long movie. It is. It doesn't drag, but I can say that there were some scenes that really, it was like, there's no need to put this in here. Like, I think a lot of what they did was they dragged it out to sort of just give, these Blade Runner fans the aesthetic that they wanted, basically. Because I think the first one's barely 2 hours long, which is good, for that movie. But for this one, it felt like, it really, there were a lot of scenes that they really didn't need to add in. I'm not saying that they didn't need to have those characters, because I think the characters themselves were important. Really just, to give it a feel, like to see the different ways that people are living in this world. The story here basically is that Ryan Gosling's character discovers this huge secret. I'm not getting into it because it's really cool. Like, especially if you like the Blade Runner movies, like, I don't want to spoil anything for this. So I'm trying not to, go too into detail because, I don't want to give anything away. Because I was really surprised with how they did it and how they executed it, because they did it really well. It's a mystery movie, basically. He's trying to find Deckard, which is Harrison Ford's character. Like, the first house that Ryan Gosling's at, they discover a grave, and basically, like, from that grave, they find all these secrets that is basically leading him to Deckard. And it's also, like, Ryan Gosling sort of finding himself as well. Because you kind of get the feeling that he, the replicants still, like, even though they're not, being hunted, like, a lot of them are allowed to be assimilated into society now, they're still not happy with how they're treated. Because in a way, I think, they feel like the newer models basically are like Rachel was in the first one. They have past memories. They're still replicants, They're still treated as inferior to humans, even though they themselves feel human. So in that standpoint, it's also a very philosophical movie. Really, the whole thing, it just seeped aesthetic. There was so much aesthetic in this movie. It was so intense. And then, like, the soundtrack as well, because I don't always, care so much about the music in the background, especially because it ends up, if, like, I pay attention to that, I get distracted and I don't pay attention to the movie. But, the soundtrack in this movie you couldn't miss because it's extremely loud. But it's also, like, it's a Hans Zimmer score, so it's going to be loud anyway, but it's like almost word for word from the original. Like, it sounds just like it. It's so cool. It really is. And you get this feel that, like, so much has happened in these 30 years building up to the point that they're at now. Because you go to a lot of different places. Like, you mainly stayed in Los Angeles in the original. You basically, like, you went around, like, California, wasteland areas. And then I'm pretty sure at one point it was Vegas that they were in. It's so cool. It really is. Ryan Gosling he did a great job with his character. Because you do, with the replicants, you kind of, there's sort of like, they have to contain all emotion in a way. You got that, you got that sense from like the baseline kind of tests that, anger especially is severely frowned upon. Because like an angry replicant is basically, a huge red flag. He did a great job with this character. I don't really know why people kind of bash on Ryan Gosling. I like him enough. I think probably that people just sort of bash on him because he's one of those like heartthrob movie kind of guys. But he does a great job with the characters that he tackles. And especially with this one, he kind of held his own, especially when Harrison Ford got on the screen, which, it's, it's Harrison Ford. I really like Harrison Ford. I definitely didn't go to see this movie for Harrison Ford. Like I said, I was skeptical about it coming out. I wasn't sure what to expect, especially because it's like, they just sort of threw this movie at us. Like, it came out of nowhere. The reviews on it are great. It has, I think, an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. And, like, the IMDb reviews, it's, like, an 8.2 out of 10. So it's getting great reviews. But, the articles that are, like, coming out for this movie, they're just like, oh, this is why it was a flop. Oh, this is why no one's going to see it. It's silly to me. I like I said, I enjoyed it. It was just that it's 3 hours long. I mean, even Olivia enjoyed it. She, she has a hard time sitting through a lot of things, but she hadn't seen the first one. I did have to give her like a quick rundown of what happened in the first one before this one started in the theater. But she seemed to enjoy it as well. There wasn't ever a time that I kind of, looked over her and she seemed like she was just kind of, zoning out in her own little world. She seemed to really like what was going on. Because she likes that kind of, she likes aesthetic kind of things. Science fiction isn't always her jam. I don't know. I'll have to ask her again if she liked it. Sometimes she'll say she liked things, but then she's like, no, I didn't like that. That's the only thing, the time for this movie. And actually, as I was going, like, getting my tickets and everything, I looked at it, I was like, oh my god, this movie's 3 hours long. Why didn't I know that? Because it's definitely one you gotta power through if you have a hard time sitting still for that long. But I feel like it's worth it in a way. Maybe, if your theater has like a matinee day or something, if the tickets are cheaper at a certain time, probably do it then. Or, even just if you want to wait for Redbox, like, it's a movie you should definitely see. If you don't want to see it in theaters, basically the time limit here is my biggest issue, that it was so long. Because there were a lot of scenes that, like, they dragged on, or they just, like, they could have just cut them out completely. But it's also a lot of, like, little things that, like, I get why they still had them in there. Like, one of the things being that like, Ryan Gosling's character, he has, like, his own apartment and everything, and he has, like, this girlfriend who she's I guess technically a replicant, but it's different. She's like a hologram, which was interesting in a way. I mean, I don't even know how to say why it's interesting, because it's not like she's an embodied person. In a way, like, they could have uploaded her, into, like, a robot body or something. I don't know. Like, she's continually there throughout the movie. This is one of my favorite moments, actually, because it sort of drove, like, the ending for it. Because Ryan Gosling's character is sort of conflicted on what he has to do at, like, towards the very end. He sees, like, an advertisement for the hologram, like, the programming for his hologram girlfriend, which is basically, like, the advertisement for it is basically saying she says what you want to hear, or she tells you what you want to hear, and she knows what you want, sort of. It was just a very interesting driving point. It's very minute details like that make it such a really good continuation for the Blade Runner series, because you get a lot more immersement into this world. Even though the first one, you still, like, there's a lot of immersement for it. I'm trying to think if there's, like, anything else I wanted to say. It's just so many little things. And honestly, like, it was one of those, like, for the ending, where you kind of get to the point where you're sort of conflicted about what's going on, I guess. Because you get the idea right away of what's going on, like with the mystery with, like, Ryan Gosling's inner kind of turmoil, and then, like, the conflict of finding Deckard. But then it gets to the point where really, like, I was kind of sitting there and I was like, wait a minute, I was so sure this is what was happening, but that's not what was happening. It, like, turned its head and it went in a different direction. And yeah, I liked it. I was just kind of like, oh, okay. We're going on a completely different journey. I don't know if there's anything else I want to say without spoiling anything. Oh, one other thing. I couldn't find her name because, in all honesty, I didn't know the names of any of the characters. Except for, like, Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford. Oh, and Jared Leto. Jared Leto's in it, by the way. He's insanely creepy. It's... why? Anyway, there's, like, a replicant that works for Jared Leto. She's, like, the antagonist for the movie. She was really cool. And there were points where she was hella scary. Not, like, Roy Batty scary, but she was definitely, like... well, Roy Batty never really scared me. He was cool. She scared me. She, like, there was points where, like, she would yell and it was like, oh God, why did you do that? She was a really cool character. Still, I can't get into, like, any kind of details for this because I feel like I'd be spoiling things. It was just a lot of cool little things that they did. Yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up. If you listen to this early enough before, like, my other episode is up, my Thursday episode for today is going to be a little late because we didn't have time to record on Tuesday. Olivia had a family emergency she had to go deal with. It's just going to be me and Jeannie today for our horror movie month episode. Look forward to that if you listen to this early. And anything else? I don't think so. The cats were really good. Then again, this is a really short episode, so they didn't have time to misbehave. Yeah, okay, so Blade Runner 2049, it was way too long, but they did a great job. I really liked it. It doesn't deserve all the real weird skepticism it's getting from, like, all these articles that I keep seeing on Google. Like I said, the first one was a flop, so if they're saying this one was a flop, I don't think personally that it was a flop. I think that they dragged it on too much, but stylistically, aesthetically, the music, the characters, the world, everything was an amazing continuation. They did a great job. So if, you're a fan of Blade Runner and you like these kind of movies and you have 3 hours to kill, go for it. Like, it's a good movie. I don't know when the next Quickfire review will be. Like I said, next episode will be up later tonight. It'll be kind of late. Hopefully y'all will enjoy. And I will see you next time. Bye!